It was supposed to be just another private gathering, low-key, exclusive, and far from the spotlight. But something about the way Heughan and Monika Clarke appeared that night instantly caught attention in a way no one expected. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it was different enough to make people pause and look twice. And within minutes, a quiet curiosity began turning into something much bigger. The party itself was held in Australia, attended by a small circle of guests who were used to being around public figures. There were no flashing cameras, no official press, just a relaxed atmosphere where people could let their guard down. That's what made the moment even more intriguing, because whatever was noticed that night wasn't meant for public consumption. It was something subtle, something that slipped through in a space where no one expected it to matter. Heughan has always maintained a certain level of control over how he presents himself in public. Whether at events or in interviews, he's known for being composed, friendly, but never overly revealing when it comes to his personal life. Monika Clarke, on the other hand, brings a quieter presence, someone who blends elegance with a sense of distance from the constant noise of celebrity culture. Together, they've been seen before, but rarely in a way that sparked this level of immediate speculation. That night, however, the dynamic between them felt noticeably different. They stood closer, spoke more intimately, and moved with a kind of ease that didn't look staged or performative. It wasn't just about proximity, it was about the energy between them, something that felt more relaxed, more natural, and perhaps more personal than what people had previously observed. And in an environment where details matter, those small shifts didn't go unnoticed. Then came the moment that changed everything. According to those who were present, there was a brief interaction, something easily overlooked unless you were paying close attention. A gesture, a glance, and what appeared to be a subtle exchange that carried more weight than it should have. It wasn't confirmed, it wasn't explained, but it was enough to spark a question that quickly spread through the room. At first, it was just whispers. A few people noticing the same detail, quietly comparing what they had seen. But as those whispers connected, they formed a narrative that was impossible to ignore. Someone mentioned a ring, someone else pointed out how naturally they seemed to move together, and suddenly the atmosphere shifted from casual observation to quiet speculation. The question surfaced almost instinctively: could this mean something more? What made the situation even more intense was how quickly it escalated once the night progressed. Even without photos or official confirmation, the idea took hold among those present, growing stronger with every passing conversation. Because when multiple people begin to interpret the same moment in a similar way, it creates a sense of validity that's hard to dismiss. And by the time the party began to wind down, the speculation had already taken on a life of its own. Within hours, fragments of what happened that night started to reach beyond that private circle. Not as clear facts, but as pieces of a story, descriptions, impressions, and interpretations that left just enough ambiguity to keep people guessing. Fans, always quick to connect dots, began to analyze every known interaction between Heughan and Monika Clarke, looking for signs that this moment hadn't come out of nowhere. What they found only added to the mystery. Past appearances, previous rumors, and even subtle hints from earlier months suddenly felt more relevant than before. It was as if that one night in Australia had unlocked a new way of looking at everything that came before it. And in that shift, the possibility of something bigger, something long kept out of public view, started to feel surprisingly real. Because in the end, it wasn't about one single moment or one specific detail. It was about how all those small pieces came together to form a question no one could easily answer. And as that question continued to spread, growing louder with each retelling, one thing became clear: the story was no longer just about what happened at the party, but about what it might mean. But was it really what everyone thought it was, or had the moment been interpreted through a lens of excitement and assumption? As the story spread beyond that private gathering, the details began to shift, blur, and evolve depending on who was telling it. What started as a subtle observation quickly transformed into a full-blown theory, and once that theory reached the public, it took on a life of its own. The question was no longer just about what happened at the party, it became about whether it meant something far more serious. Fans immediately began breaking down every clue that had surfaced. The rumored ring became the center of attention, with some claiming it was clearly visible, while others argued it could have been nothing more than a reflection, a trick of lighting, or even a simple accessory misinterpreted in the moment. Then there were the interactions, how close they stood, how naturally they moved together, how comfortable they seemed in each other's presence. To some, it looked like undeniable proof of something deeper. To others, it was simply what happens when two people share familiarity and ease. This wasn't the first time Heughan and Monika Clarke had been linked in speculation. Over time, there had been quiet rumors, occasional sightings, and moments that hinted at a connection without ever confirming it. But those moments had always remained just that, hints, never strong enough to create a definitive narrative. What made this situation different was the setting, the timing, and the way multiple observations converged into a single, compelling story. At the same time, there was a strong argument on the other side. Those more skeptical pointed out how easily situations like this can be misunderstood, especially in environments where people are already inclined to look for meaning. A private party, a relaxed atmosphere, and the absence of cameras can often make interactions appear more intimate than they actually are. And when those interactions are later described through second-hand accounts, even the smallest detail can be amplified into something much larger than reality. Still, the idea of an engagement refused to fade. It lingered in conversations, fueled by the lack of any clear denial or confirmation. Because in situations like this, silence can be interpreted in many different ways. Some saw it as a quiet acknowledgement, others as a strategic choice to avoid unnecessary attention. And that ambiguity only made the story more compelling, keeping people engaged in a cycle of speculation that showed no signs of slowing down. What added another layer to the intrigue was how well the narrative fit into what many fans already wanted to believe. The idea of a relationship evolving into something more serious, something official, felt like a natural progression of the story they had been following. And when a narrative aligns with expectation, it becomes even harder to question, even when the evidence remains uncertain. As debates continued, the fanbase split into distinct perspectives. One group embraced the possibility, treating the rumors as an exciting development, something to celebrate even without confirmation. Another group pushed back, insisting that without clear proof, everything remained speculation built on fragile assumptions. And between those two sides, the conversation only grew louder, more detailed, and more emotionally charged. In the end, the truth remained just out of reach. No official statement, no undeniable proof, no clear resolution to settle the growing curiosity. But perhaps that's exactly why the story continues to hold attention. Because sometimes, what keeps people watching isn't certainty, it's the mystery, the unanswered question that invites everyone to interpret it in their own way. And maybe that's what makes this moment so powerful. Not whether Heughan and Monika Clarke are truly engaged, but the fact that one night, one subtle detail, was enough to make the world stop and wonder. Because in a story driven by glimpses and possibilities, the line between reality and belief can be just as captivating as any confirmed truth. And maybe that's what makes this moment so powerful. Not whether Heughan and Monika Clarke are truly engaged, but the fact that one night, one subtle detail, was enough to make the world stop and wonder. Because in a story driven by glimpses and possibilities, the line between reality and belief can be just as captivating as any confirmed truth. KK